The Texas State Senate has just voted in favor of one of Governor Greg Abbott's agenda items. And yes, it has to do with critical race theory and how it should be banned from public schools. But it goes even further. It goes a step further. And I want to tell you exactly what this is. Well, Senate Bill 3 states that a teacher may not be compelled to discuss a particular current event or widely debated and currently controversial issue of public policy or social affairs. Oh, it's fascinating. So what does that include? Well, the bill is a follow-up to an already passed House bill that Abbott signed in May. Now, among the changes in SB 3 is the removal of a reference to the KKK being morally wrong from the House Bill 3779, which is set to become law in September. So they want to ban teachers from teaching about the KKK. But Candace Owens just wants everyone to know that conservatives in America are being condemned and dehumanized the same way that Jews were by the Nazis. They have no power, you guys. They have no power. I mean, they run state legislatures. You have right-wing governors across the country essentially signing laws that not only suppress voting rights, but also suppress educators from being able to do their jobs. But conservatives, they're the real victims here. They're the, very, very sad. Now, here's what else Senate Bill 3 in Texas bans. An individual bears responsibility. The teachers are not allowed to teach this. An individual bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of their race or sex. An individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of their race or sex. So let's stop right there, because understand what that is, what that entails. So don't make any students feel anguish about this country's awful history of racism, of slavery. I mean, I don't think that students should feel personally responsible, but to say that teaching any type of content that leads to anguish among students, I mean, to ban that is, we know what they're doing. It's just abundantly clear. And by the way, I know I've said this a billion times before. I'm gonna say it again. It's important to reiterate it. Critical race theory is typically curriculum that's taught at a graduate level. So the critical race theory debates and censorship that's taking place right now is honestly based on fear mongering regarding a non-issue. Like they're worried and they're pretending to be worried that like elementary students, like middle school students, and maybe even high school students, like they're learning critical race theory, and the whole point of critical race theory is for them to hate their country and to hate the white man. That's not happening, and that's not even what critical race theory is. But let's deflect from the fact that Texas still has a broken down, privatized, deregulated power grid that left Texans dead during the last winter storm. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about real problems, okay? Let's not talk about how infrastructure and whole condos are collapsing and killing hundreds of people in places like Florida. Well, don't talk about that, don't talk about that. Let's talk about critical race theory. Let's talk about critical race theory, that's a real problem, okay. Also, the bill bans discussion of slavery and racism as anything other than deviations from betrayals of or failures to live up to the authentic found principles of the United States. Now, there's a different angle that I want to focus on in regard to the motivations behind what Abbott is doing in the state of Texas. I mentioned the deflections. I mean, they don't want to talk about the bread and butter issues. Right wingers love the culture wars. The culture wars like their warm blanket at night. They can't get enough of it. But Abbott, even as he's doing hideous things and proving himself to be a good conservative for the Republican Party, is being challenged. From the right, he's not conservative enough, because of course not. So apparently he has a primary challenger, and that could be motivating and fueling his objectives with some of the horrendous stuff he's been doing in the state of Texas. In Texas, GOP Governor Abbott, who faces a contested re-election primary next year, is pushing looser gun laws than he ever previously embraced, and also proposing unprecedented state actions, including promises to build more walls on the Mexican border. And also, while Abbott echoed Trump's partisan positions and has banked $55 million in campaign funds, more than any sitting governor in history, it's just not enough. He's drawn a challenge from Allen West, who until recently was the chairman of the Texas GOP. West, a Tea Party firebrand and former Florida congressman, has attacked Abbott's leadership after Democrats temporarily thwarted a GOP voting bill by decamping to Washington. So Allen West is providing a primary challenge to Abbott. And what's amazing is that Abbott is being held accountable for Democrats in the state fleeing the state in order to block the passage of a voter suppression bill. And so Abbott has threatened to arrest the Democrats who fled the state. And once you understand that self-preservation and just pure political motivation is behind these decisions, you get a sense of just how disgusting and deplorable people like Greg Abbott really are. Because there are no guiding principles, right? There's really nothing here about doing right by Abbott's constituents, doing right by the voters in Texas, fundamentally improving their lives, finding ways to provide material improvements to their lives. Maybe a little bit of regulation for that power grid that's been such a disaster. Maybe just a little tiny bit. No, he's gonna go and do the things that provide conservative fodder, right? But also it's political theater. It's right-wing political theater that doesn't serve any purpose other than self-preservation for Governor Greg Abbott, who wants to remain in power. These power-hungry goons who don't even care about the people in their own state, much less anyone else in the US. So let's loosen up the already laxed gun laws. Let's pass voter suppression bills. Let's do the most unhinged things we can imagine just to hold on to that power. That's what Abbott's up to. It's pretty gross.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.